Without formalizing relationships, apostolic leaders and the people to whom they minister have no definition of who we are and where we're going. In order to go on a journey with someone, in order to engage in a project with someone, there has to be some level of formation or formalization in that relationship to give it a defined meaning and purpose, to put people in a distinguished space to where we understand our roles, our relationship, our commitment to one another, where we're headed, and what our objective is. Without that, there's a lot of confusion. For instance, I've spoken to apostolic leaders, and maybe they'll say something like, there's 30 churches in our network. But the problem is about half those churches don't know it. All they know is they went to a meeting and put their name on a mailing list. Now they're in the network. And what I would suggest is those relationships in that situation need formalized. People need to know. There needs to be a communication. I've seen situations where someone will say, so-and-so over there, they're my spiritual son. Problem is, when you go talk to that spiritual son, they don't know that that person is their spiritual father. It's never been communicated. It's never been formalized. It's been assumed. But relationships based on assumptions don't work. They're weak. They fall apart. Robert Clinton wrote an excellent book on mentoring, and he was adamant in that book that mentoring relationships needed to be intentional. They needed to be formal. The person being mentored needs to know it. They need to know what's expected of them. They need to commit. The one that's doing the mentoring, they need to commit. They need to know that this individual is asking for and expecting them to actually mentor them. And what does that look like? That needs to be negotiated. So in order to formalize these relationships, consider these 5 steps. Number 1, there has to be a set vision, a goal, a purpose. Now, Robert Clinton says that there also needs to be a time element involved in the setting of this vision or the purpose. And what I mean is that it's like 2 people going on a journey. The destination needs to be decided upon. It needs to be negotiated, and both people need to agree on that destination. And so the first step in formalizing a relationship in a kind of a mentoring setting or a shepherding setting is that both people agree through negotiation and communication on what the destination is, what's the vision, what's the purpose, what does this look like, what do we want to achieve? Now that leads us to the second one, which is the establishment of expectation. Every relationship that falls apart from marriage to friendship does so based on one common element: unmet expectation. And so the second thing we do in a formalized relationship is we sit down and write out and communicate clearly the expectations. It is saying, here's what I expect of you. Are you able to achieve that? What do you expect of me? Let me know, and I'll tell you if I'm able to do that. And you hammer out the expectations. So first of all, you negotiate the vision. Second of all, you negotiate the expectation. Thirdly, you negotiate the buy-in, the commitment. This is where people commit 100%. And that has to be said. That has to be talked about. When Jesus called his disciples, it was 100%. He formalized that relationship by calling them into an area of 100% commitment. And these types of relationships don't work if you're about half in and half out. It's not 50%, 75%, it's 100%. We've got to talk about commitment. What does that look like? What does it look like to commit your time? What does it look like to commit your money? What does it look like to commit your effort and your energy into this relationship as we formalize it? Number 4, it has to be symbolized. There needs to be some symbol of this. Most of the time, when you make a commitment, you symbolize it with a signature on a piece of paper, and that's fine. But you may symbolize this with a handshake. You may symbolize it with a certain ceremony. You may symbolize it with a prayer. You may symbolize it with a handshake. But it's always good, always helpful to have some physical symbol of the formalized relationship in which these people are engaging for the purpose of fulfilling this mission. I think symbols are very powerful and very necessary, physical symbols of this inward work. Finally, you name it. I think it's important to name a formalized relationship. What is exactly going on? Am I going to parent you? Am I going to mentor you? Am I going to foster you? Am I just going to teach you? And naming specifically what this is so that the communication and the language is consistent is a necessary ingredient in formalizing these relationships. And so if you're going to mentor people, father people, mother people, if you're going to lead people, if you're going to pastor people, if you're going to be an apostolic leader of people, the stronger the commitment to reach that high vision will take some level of formalization in that relationship. So this is not everything that could be said about it, but at least this will get the conversation started.